Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today on Jay Slay Made in the USA, where we explore truth, expose deception, and inspire courage. Guys, I'm really excited about today's guest. We've got Matt Murphy, who is the president of the Sentinel Foundation, a fighting human trafficking organization. And man, this guy has an incredible background. He's got a personal story with his own family and how it really has lit a fire in his heart to fight this particular issue of human trafficking. So really excited to have you today, Matt. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Jeremy, thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
looking
absolutely.
forward to it.
Well, let's start with a little bit of your background. You know, I could have gone into a long background for you, but I'd like to hear from you on, you know, you grew up in Memphis and then you went to the military pretty quickly during college, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So walk us through your timeline from that point in college until getting with the Sentinel Foundation.
Definitely. I was a little bit of a wild child. You know, couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do in life. You know, always made good grades. The only reason I got into college is because I scored so high on the ACT. I got a full ride scholarship, but I barely passed high school. I was like a 2.0 or something. I almost failed.
Wow. You're holding back, man.
Well, I just was bored. You know, boredom is something that I don't operate well in. And a lot of guys like me end up in special operations because we're intelligent. We just can't sit there and just, I don't want to go be an accountant or work for somebody else or get a degree and say I'm this. That sounds like a nightmare to me, right? So I just didn't do well in schooling the way it's structured here in the U.S., right? And was bored. So I wanted to join the military. I always wanted to do it. It wasn't something that people in my family had done. Nobody was really in the military or law enforcement. So I just kind of said, I'm going to do it. And I went to the recruiter's office and said, I want to go fight in Iraq. You know, they were a little taken back by that. And I just went 2 weeks later. I was in basic training.
Wow. Was some of that driven by terrorist attacks in the U.S. and things you'd seen?
Of course, at that time, this was 2006, so 9/11 wasn't like brand new. But you still had the Toby Keith song playing in the background. You got to go fight for your country and kill terrorists, and all
put
this
the
stuff.
boot in their ass, man.
Yeah, there you go. It's the American way, right? And at that time, that was the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. That was still the collective country was still very supportive of that, still very behind that, and I felt like I needed to go do my part. And I wanted to become a man because I was lost. I was a lost kid. I was getting in trouble, smoking pot, doing all kinds of things. Wasn't really doing anything with my life, right? I was at that point I was a epic failure, and
it's like you knew you needed direction.
Yeah,
Why not the military and the Green Berets?
There you go. So I wasn't just going to put a boot in terrorist ass. I needed a boot put in my ass.
There you go.
So I joined the military. I thought that would be the way, and because of some mistakes I made, most of it reckless driving. I've always had a problem with speeding. They told me I couldn't get the security clearance to go into special forces, so I had to do infantry. So I joined as an infantryman, went to basic, got out, was stationed in Germany, and then did my first deployment to Iraq. This was back when we were doing the long one, so it was a 13-month deployment to Iraq.
Wow.
Surge on Sadr City. Pretty wild time. And while I was there, in Iraq, there were these guys who would come in at night, big old beards, cool, no one was in uniform, cool guns, had a bunch of, we were driving around in like these armored boxes and walking around like a samurai warrior. We had so much armor on, you couldn't even move, barely breathe. It was so damn hot over there. And then there's these guys just doing whatever the hell they want. And they'd come in the base, they'd tell our commander what they're about to go do, they'd drive off. And then Sadr City just started glowing from AC-130 attacks every night. And, it was like, of course, the first time I saw them, who are those guys? And, those Green Berets, don't look at them. And I was like, I got to go do that.
Yeah.
So I went and tried out pretty much as soon as we got back from that deployment.
Now, what does that look like, a tryout for a Green Beret? Because you hear the Marcus Luttrell, you can read the book about what SEALs training is like, and I think that's what a lot of people know.
Yeah.
How's Green Beret different?
Well, that's because when you become a Navy SEAL and you get your trident, you get a publicist, right? So
I didn't know that.
But that's
does it come with it?
What else? Yeah, I mean, that's the joke. Those guys love to tell their stories, and we all talk shit. I'm just not hating on them.
I've met some fathers in Navy SEALs, and almost like, hey, the truth is,
Yeah.
like, the SEAL Foundation is massive, and they got a lot of money and
Well,
movie
they do.
deals and everything else.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, again, if you can say, hey, if you're getting out of the military, and you can say, made by Navy SEAL, and people buy it, more power to you, bro. Fully support it, man, because they paid their dues, but we just like, it's friendly. We like to give each other crap.
Right.
But on the Green Beret side of the house, we're more known as the quiet professionals. The tryouts, it's a selection process, right, where you get tested physically and mentally. There's some psychological tests and stuff. A lot of things that you have to do before you can get accepted to go to selection.
Yeah.
But if you physically and mentally make it to the end of selection, then you can get selected to go to school to become a Green Beret. So. I think back in those days, over 400 people in a selection class, maybe 100 would make it to the end. And then out of the 100, not everyone got selected. I don't remember the exact numbers of selections in my class, but then you go to Fort Bragg if you get selected, and then you go through a school to become a Green Beret, where you learn another language. I got Arabic. At the time, like my little Southern drawl, I was going to speak Arabic.
Probably useful though for where we were at the time, right?
Yeah, 100%. So I now speak Arabic. I'd say conversationally, fluently in a couple dialects. I get to practice at Newbers in Nashville still. And then you learn tactics. We go through like a small tactics course, kind of like a mini ranger school, if you will. And then we go through our specialty training, where we get trained in one of the key specialties. So you have, because I was an enlisted guy, you have weapons sergeants, engineer sergeant, a communications sergeant, a medical sergeant. Right, those are the four areas, and they kind of pick for you. Right, you get to pretend like you have a choice, but they select it. And I got communications, so I was a radio and computer nerd on the team.
Right.
And so did that, and then we have a course at the end, like Robin Sage, that ties everybody's skills.
What's it called?
Robin Sage.
Okay.
It kind of ties everybody. Oh, I forgot. SEER school before that, survival, survive, evade, resistance, escape, where you learn survival and then, get your butt kicked and prisoner of war camp and all that. And then, Robin Sage, and that's where you all come together, and then you have to do a mission together as a special forces detachment, right? Bringing all the different levels of, or skill sets together, and then, you'll finally get to meet one of the officers who was going through a thing too, and, you all come together on a team.
One dumb question, when I think of Green Beret, because again, it's not in the movies that often. I'm probably missing somewhere. It really is. Rambo, that's the one I'm thinking of.
John Wayne.
Yes.
Come on, man.
Yeah. And he's got the actual Green Beret. Do you get one of those as a Green Beret these days?
You get an actual Green Beret.
Do you wear it in the field?
No, not in the field. Actually, I looked like I was probably in a punk rock band on most deployments. But you wear it when you're back in what we call garrison, back at the base. Sometimes you would wear it, but
so it's not like a dorky thing to do, like to wear it.
No, it's an honorable, prestigious thing.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the letter
right?
jackets in college. Like now they may be popular again, but when I was at school, like even if you were a letterman, whatever, like you had your letter jacket, but you just kind of kept it in the closet.
Yeah. Well, no, I know what you mean. No, they're not with the Green Beret, man. That was actually a very thing that I was probably most proud of in my life.
I'm not taking away from that, dude. I'm just saying to actually wear the Green Beret.
Oh no, I know. No, we do. We don't wear it a lot. A lot of times we begrudgingly. It's not that we don't like to wear the Green Beret. Most Green Berets and special operations guys just don't like to be in the uniforms, right? Because we're the punk rock, athletes of the military, and most people in the military hate us for that. We're the guys with the beards and the long hair and but that's the attitude. We fight war unconventionally.
Yeah.
And that's to build that into a successful Green Beret or unit. You have to have that unconventional mindset, and you can't have an unconventional mindset when everything's regimented, everything's dressed, everything looks the same, everybody acts the same, and you just do what you're told. That doesn't necessarily work well in a special operations environment.
People remember the stories again. The Lone Survivor, they've seen the movie, or maybe read the book when you get into the SEALs training. And there's other books that I've read that detail the different training of the SEALs and just how excruciatingly difficult it is. I want to hear a story from the Green Beret training. You know, it doesn't have to necessarily be excruciatingly difficult, although it might.
Yeah.
But what's something that stands out in your mind about the training to become one?
Well, for the Navy SEALs, from what I know, because I wasn't one, from what I hear from most of my buddies that were SEALs, is that, you know, or are, I don't know if they're the same way as Marines, is the water is that equalizer, well, you know, for them. For us, it's the rucksack and the walking and the miles and the hills. And you know, that's, because Green Beret, it's more of, we have dive teams, but that's not our specialty. You know, SEALs, obviously, they're in the Navy, so they come off the boats and the submarines, and that's their infiltration technique is, you know, mostly water methods or, you know, jumping out of planes. For Green Berets, it's walking in or jumping in, right? So our equalizer was that rucksack on your back and just endless miles of walking and carrying things and all that. And so I would say the toughest part about becoming a Green Beret is just having that rucksack on your back.
Yeah.
And then just the endless miles that you do in the selection.
Well, tell me about
process.
the endless miles. What kind of like days are we talking?
Well, so you would, you know, there's...
And the weight, I've carried a rucksack, you know, I did a 12-hour thing with gov't before.
Yeah.
And it was hard. There's no doubt about it. Because we were doing exercises with the backpack and all. I think I had 30 pounds in there. But what's a typical...
And, you know, I think in selection, you start off with a set weight, and then, you know, you add your water and your food, and then you add all of the objects that they give you to carry, and things that you have to solve.
Whereas ours was just a steel weight in our backpack. Right. You're actually carrying things for survival.
A bunch of crap. And then once you get into the actual course, you know, you're carrying radios and batteries and ammunition, and you could 80 to 100 pounds easily in a backpack carrying that around, and you just got to move, and your weapon, right? You know? You're pretty weighted down. But during the selection process, it was guys getting hurt from that weight and then what they were asked to physically do, you know, and that's the equalizer, right? Everybody's going to be hurt. I think I had a couple stress fractures in my foot, you know, that's a very common thing to have, you know, happen after that. But, you know, are you going to mentally quit? And you have guys showing up from colleges all over the country, athletes, all kinds of different levels. Everybody's in the best shape of their life going into selection because you build, you train, you get it. That's the test, right?
Right.
Guys don't show up to selection not in the best shape of their life. And everybody gets beaten down and broken and destroyed during that, between all the events and the things you have to do. And what you find is it doesn't matter how awesome of an athlete you are. You've got to be physically prepared, but what they're really looking at is your mindset. Are you going to quit? Are you going to be able to push through? Because at the end of the day, I don't care how good a shape you are, how much you can lift, how fast you can run. If you don't have a strong mind, you're a coward. You're weak. You're going to fall apart.
Did all of that training come in handy for you when you went back into deployment?
Oh, of course. I mean, the whole process of becoming a Green Beret is, and I'm saying for most special operations, is to challenge your weaknesses. Right?
Yeah.
And to not just challenge them, to identify and point them out, put your weaknesses on display, because a lot of things about you inherently, you're not going to be able to change, right? But you have to know that you're like that. How are you when you're hungry? How are you when you're tired? You know, like tired, you know, physically, tired mentally. How do you behave? How do you interact with others on your team? You know, what are you going to do? What's your mind going to do? Because everybody's mind, I don't care who you are, when you're in adverse, extreme situations, your mind is going to be your enemy, right? I should just quit. I should just give up. It's too cold. I'm too tired. I'm too wet. You know, like, I could just go home. Or, screw these guys. I'm out of here. Or, hey, I'm going to eat more food because I'm starving. Well, everyone else is too. It's who are you? The test and the things that they put you through ensure that the wrong people hopefully don't make it through and become, you know, a Green Beret or become a Navy SEAL. Yeah. You know, there's anyone can join the military and, you know, become an infantryman. Yeah. And I'm not saying that in an insulting way, but there's not a lot of standard qualification there. We had a guy who could do 13 push-ups that got pushed through and became an infantryman. Yeah.
He must have been good at something else.
Hey, time of war, you need bodies, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell me this, you know, you can hold off as much as you need to or tell me whatever you want, but obviously other people were looking at you during your time because you did get contacted by the agency we call the CIA. Was there a reason that you were selected to be
I don't
involved?
know. I don't know. Nobody tells you anything. But there were lots of guys from fifth group who got selected, detailed
Yeah.
to the agency for certain projects, and did that for a while. And pretty much did an Afghanistan deployment right when I got to group, and then right after that is when I started a detail with the
Okay.
agency, is with the ground branches. I
Okay.
guess they're
Now,
publicly called.
the only other question I'll ask about that is
Yeah.
when our first phone conversation,
Mm-hmm.
I had read that about you, or you had told me,
Yeah.
and I told you just straight up, I was like, hey, that to some degree makes my, caution flag go up,
Yeah.
but because I don't know that with your training and all, I don't know that I trust our CIA, et cetera. Right.
I don't either. So.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Which is, so, but you think that that's a valid question for somebody in my position to be
Yeah.
asking.
Well, man, I mean, I don't want to beat this to death too much, go down the rabbit hole, but in the game of where information and the collection of information is king, there is no truth, right? And there is no honesty, and everything is deceit. So yeah, you just never know, right?
Explain that. So
Oh.
you said, because you and I would both agree at believing in God, and that there is a what's the word for the truth? There's a absolute truth exists. Like things do happen or don't happen.
Yes.
It's not whatever I want it to be is the truth.
Yes.
That's what the world would have you
Or
believe.
what you see is the truth,
Right. So we believe that truth exists. The information is valuable because the truth about somebody's actions exist. It's real. And these companies or governments or whatever, they want to know those things. So if truth exists and it's valuable information, what do you mean when you say in the world of where truth is everything, or information is everything, truth doesn't exist?
Well, I mean, what? It's like that famous line in Jack Nicholson, you can't handle the truth, right?
Yeah.
The truth is a very easily manipulated, perverted, distorted thing, right? The truth is usually is what people just see first, or just what people believe.
Yeah.
People believe in different gods, different fairy tales, different paths of life, different politics. There's so many things that people believe in that pervert the truth even before people start to manipulate it.
Right.
Right. And then who controls the information that you receive? We are lied to every day, right? And I'm not saying it's all with the worst of intentions, but we are lied to every day by the news, by the media, by even people we love, right? You're a parent. I'm a parent. Don't tell me you don't lie to your kids and manipulate them almost every day to get them to
For
do
their own good.
For their own good, right? Well,
The government never says that.
Never, right? The government would never tell you a lie or do something wrong.
Well, I'll tell you, what scares me about what you just said, though? I thought about it in a different way. There are people who have my best intentions at heart. They love me, but they have already become so controlled by the repeated messaging of these globalist entities that want them to believe a certain thing. They believe it. Therefore, they want me to believe that too. And if I push against that, it creates tension, pain between us, which sucks. Because
for your best interest.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, that's the thing. You have a whole hierarchy of people that have the ability to say it's for your own good. Right.
Yeah.
Now, who they get to be because of the way things are set up, the judge and the jury and the executioner, so to speak, of information, intelligence, and what and how you perceive the world. I mean, the old adage that history is written by the conqueror, right? Whoever wins gets to portray it however they want. Well, I mean, look at what's happening in the country right before our eyes right now. We haven't been conquered, but our history and truth is being rewritten right before our own very eyes. Definitions of things are being changed, and you Google stuff now, and it's what you can Google now, and certain topics I'm not going to touch are different than what they were 5 years ago.
Well, I mentioned to you off camera earlier, like one that we can touch is that, I'd heard, and I'm sure you've heard, that Vladimir Putin had, taken the power away from the Rothschild banking system in Russia, right? It's a statement that's been made by many people.
Right.
But if I Google that right now, the first 10 results are going to be all fact checkers telling me how that's not true and why.
There's multiple reasons for that. One is that most media outlets who pop up first when you search anything are owned by one entity in the world, BlackRock, right? So they are controlling a lot of the information outside of the government controlling it. And then you also have things that are classified that the governments, not just the U.S., governments around the world don't allow to make it onto, the paper. Or it must be, you got to redact this. You can't say this. It's we become such a globalized world. I don't even really know who's in charge anymore, to be honest.
You know more than you're letting on.
What I mean is like, is it the government that's in charge? Not really. Most governments nowadays are pawns of corporations. Corporations are, most corporations aren't just in America or just in England or just in China.
International.
They're international with international interests with different levels of classification and authority in multiple different countries. And they have arguably more money and influence than any government ever could.
Yeah.
Right? So we live in a very weird, strange time for humanity right now where you're between, I think, I call it the big three: technology, government, and religion, right? Those three things are really what control men and our thoughts, and they all have different allegiances, different alliances, different things where they agree, different paths where they diverge.
Do you think in these times, though, we're seeing more of a convergence of those things than ever before? I mean, you see the Pope now is wanting to do the kind of one world religion center going on with globalist stuff.
You don't even want to go down that rabbit hole.
Well, but I'm just saying, it seems to me that a lot of the biggest, even like progressive Christian churches that aren't Catholic at all, that kind of are going along with the social justice initiatives that are kind of global. It's like there is kind of an aligning happening more so than maybe ever before.
Well, that should probably scare the shit out of most people, right? Anytime you've got Muslims, Catholics, and Jews getting along, there's a problem, right? Your spidey senses, should be going off, right? There's something's not right here.
What I want to do is, just like when you came over today, we had to talk off camera for a good hour at least, and we kind of did it in two parts. We talked about what's going on in the world and your understanding. I was really amazed, to be honest, Matt. Just I do this all the time. You are involved in human trafficking work, and obviously you've had a broad range of experiences, but you could easily not know the things you know. But you are the kind of person, it seems, that wanted to peel back the layers. You wanted to know the truth behind various things. So let's continue to dig on this for a while, and then we're going to relate it all into what you're doing today.
100%.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You spent some time, tell me the other countries that you actually were deployed in that you spent time in.
Yeah, well, so in a combat environment, I was in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria for combat deployments. But in special operations, we do multiple different types of missions, not just direct combat. So I ended up spending pretty much every country in the Middle East at some point, lots of parts of Europe or South Asia. I'm sorry, West Asia. From Tajikistan all the way down. For different levels of operations. Some I can talk about, some I shouldn't, some I can't.
How important was the 9/11 event in your joining of the military in 2006?
I mean, all the importance. I mean, I'll never forget being in school and watching, the planes hit the towers and just the sheer unknown and fear and terror that all of America felt watching. As you knew, thousands of people died just right there on the screen in school. It was on the TV all day. I think they let us go home early once they got the bus schedule figured out.
Were you a senior in high school or a freshman in college?
Senior.
Yeah.
I was senior.
I was a freshman at Georgia Tech at the time.
Yeah, and it was crazy, right? Just to see, feel. But, what was so inspiring about that is you saw the country come together. Like in tragedy, everyone America usually unites. We put our differences aside. And it didn't matter who you were at that time. You were standing behind the flag and ready to go kick some ass.
There's a beauty to that, no doubt. But my audience knows this. I did a full day on 9/11. You don't have to line up with me at all. But here's what's hard is that is a beautiful thing to see for America to put aside their differences because we've been attacked, right? What is very difficult and a tough nut to swallow is if you begin to disbelieve that story. And it's like, you know what? That was a useful tool to the government to get us all to unite behind the Project for a New American Century or George Bush or what have you. All that stuff went out the window. It's like, we just have to support our country and our leadership because they're going to protect us. And we're fearful right now.
You can go down so many rabbit holes with 9/11 and trust me, I see a lot of evidence I don't go down them, not because I refuse to, or I don't want to, I can't handle the
Oh,
truth,
come on, Matt.
but what I mean is like in my life right now, it does me no good, for my mission and what I'm trying to do. Now, trust me, I understand there's false flags and attacks like 9/11, or if it was, I'm not saying it was, or the reality that just happened, or people are even saying it now with what just happened in Israel
Mm-hmm.
with Hamas, and where they're like, you can't tell me. I'm not saying that this is what I believe, but this is what people are saying. You can't tell me that the world's most advanced radar system, most advanced detection system that can tell you what color a lizard is, it's near the fence and a mile away, didn't see Hamas guys flying in and flying V formation like the Mighty Ducks, and multiple of them on hang gliders and multiple trucks crossing the border. You can't tell me that the military was pulled back by order, which is true. I know that to be true. And that all these people died and Israel didn't see it coming. There's people that would say that. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that.
Well, the
People
day,
say that.
interestingly
Right.
enough, the day
Mm-hmm.
after it happened, I believe Netanyahu
Mm-hmm.
came out and said, "This is our 9/11." And me, I'm just say what I believe at this point because I've gone down the rabbit trail. I've
Mm-hmm.
had people that were on site at the Pentagon the day of come on my show and talk to me in detail.
Mm-hmm.
So from many, many angles, I have begrudgingly become a truther, but
Mm-hmm.
I just found that incredibly ironic that the Israeli prime minister came out and said, this is our 9/11,
Yeah.
when 9/11 was probably the most useful war machine for America
Mm-hmm.
than ever before. And right now, you see what's going on between Israel and Gaza, or Hamas. I'd say Hamas.
Yeah.
Hard for me to believe as well that there's not string pullers directing both sides that want a new world order.
Well, the way that's what they openly say it. I mean, so that's not a conspiracy.
Yeah.
They
Well, it'd
openly
be a
talk
conspiracy
about
to say that it was
that
that
this is
Israel had
part of
something to
it.
do with it.
Yes.
But I would point those people
Mm-hmm.
back to the original prime minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion. He said, we are going to have a one world government, a one world religion, a one world standing army, and it's going to be based in Jerusalem.
What do you need an army for if everybody's on the same team? I don't know. But that's what you need an army for if everybody's on the same team. I don't know. But maybe that's
That's a good point, man. It took me a minute. That's a good point.
Well, man,
Again, I'm saying these things, not you.